routing using React Router. So firstly, let's recap. In the previous session, we understood about the component lifecycle. We understood the various phases. Firstly, the mounting phase in which the component will be displayed in the UI. So we understood the various methods involved. There's constructor, render, and component did mount. So then, in case of any change in the component state, then the component will go through the updating phase where the render method will be called and the entire component will be re-rendered, right? So then, if you want to remove the component from the UI, then it will go through the unmounting phase where the component will unmount method will be called. So we understood about these in the previous session. Coming to today's session, in today's session, we are going to understand about routing and how to do routing using the React Router. So firstly, we'll understand about the multi-page applications and single-page applications. So then we'll understand about routing. So we'll see how to do routing using the React Router DOM. So in which there are various things like browser router, link, route, and switch. We'll understand about these. Okay, so to set the code playground for today's session, you need to run this. Okay, with this, all the necessary resources will be downloaded. So after this, run the npm install command, then the dependencies will get installed. So now let's get started. So when we enter a particular URL, what exactly happens? Okay, say amazon.com. Okay, let's say in the URL, we have entered amazon.com. So then what will happen? So the browser will fetch the related HTML, CSS and JavaScript files, and then it will display it, right? So it will fetch the content and then it will display it on the browser, right? So this is what it happens. So the browser will fetch the corresponding content and will display it to us. Okay, now when it comes to a web application, we can have many URLs, right? So the paths could vary, right? So there's /sales and you can see here we have /help, right? So the paths could vary. So it will result in many URLs when it comes to a web application, right? And as we navigate to a different URL, so corresponding to the URL, we'll have different content that needs to be displayed, right? Like in case of here, so we have amazon.com/sales. For that, a different content is being displayed. Similarly, we have amazon.com/help. So there again, the content that's being displayed is varying, right? So based on the URL, the content that needs to be displayed will vary, right? And in the web application, we have many URLs, right? So based on how we get the content corresponding to each URL, so the web applications are of two types. Okay, there is multi-page applications and single-page applications based on how we exactly get the content. So based on that, we have two types. Okay, there's multi-page application and single-page application. Let's understand both. Okay, starting with the multi-page application. In case of multi-page application, so when we enter the URL on the client side, right? So then for each URL, there is a corresponding set of resources, that is the HTML, CSS and JavaScript files, which will be fetched from the server. Then the browser, so on the client side, we have the browser, right? Then the browser will download these resources and display it to us on the web page. Okay. So this is what it happens. So for each URL, there is a corresponding set of HTML, CSS and JavaScript files, which will be fetched and displayed it to us. Okay, so there you can see for /slates, we have a set of resources. Again, for /help, we have another set of files, so which have been fetched and will be displayed. Okay, clear? So in a multi-page application, so every URL is associated with a corresponding set of resources, that is HTML, CSS and JavaScript files, which will be fetched and then displayed to us. Okay, so the browser will download these resources, okay, when you access that URL, and it will be displayed to us. Or either if we navigate between the URLs, even then the browser will fetch those resources and display it to us, right? So this is the multi-page application. So as the name suggests, multi-page application. So for each URL, there will be a corresponding page, that is HTML, CSS and JavaScript files, which will be fetched and displayed. Okay, now let's understand about the single page application. In case of the single page application, let's take an example of say Spotify. Okay, so in case of Spotify, as you can see on the top, we have a domain name, then we have /collections/playlists. Okay, similarly you can see /collections/podcast in this manner. Okay, so these are the different URLs corresponding to Spotify, right? So in the initial request of a single page application, so say initially you have access /collection/playlists. Okay, so then the corresponding HTML, CSS and JavaScript files will be fetched from the server. The entire playlist page will be fetched from the server. Okay, so later on when you have subsequent requests, like let's say now you have access /collection/podcast, which is again another path, right? That is another URL. So then the entire HTML, CSS and JavaScript pages will not be coming, the entire files I mean. So the HTML, CSS and JavaScript files, you need not get the entire files here. Okay, we'll just fetch the HTML, CSS and JavaScript code related to the podcast component. So as we access /collection/podcast, so some part is changing, which is the podcast component. So the corresponding HTML, CSS and JavaScript block of code, only that we'll be fetching. We won't be fetching the entire set of files. Okay, so we'll be only fetching a particular component, okay, that we want to display. Similarly, let's say we have access /collection/artists, right? So when you access in this manner, so then the code corresponding to the artist component will only be fetched from the server and will be displayed. Okay, so here in a single page application, as the name suggests, so all the URLs will be associated with a single HTML page. So that is the reason it's a single page application. So for all the URLs, we have a single HTML page. And we are navigating between the different URLs. So only the additional component that's changing, the additional content that's changing, only the code corresponding to that will be fetched. Okay. Now let's say you want to see podcasts, right? So the component corresponding to that will be fetched. That's it. Okay. Similarly, now let's say you have accessed artists, right? Then the component corresponding to that will only be fetched, right? Only the additional content will be fetched. Okay. Clear? So you understood this, right? In case of multi-page applications, for every URL, we have a corresponding set of HTML, CSS, and JavaScript files. Whereas in case of a single page application, all the URLs are associated with a single HTML page and will be fetching the code corresponding to the component that we want to display. Okay, only the component code will be fetched. Okay, you need not fetch the entire pages. Okay, that's the advantage in case of the single page application, right? In case of multi-page, we have to fetch all the files each and every time. In case of the single page, we need not do. We just need to get the code corresponding to the component. Okay, so these single page applications are used by various companies like Facebook, Gmail, PayPal, Netflix, Twitter. Like this, a lot of companies are using this single page application. By now, you understood the advantage with this, right? So the advantage is faster page loading, because you just have to load the necessary component. Okay, so as we go through the subsequent requests, you just need to load the necessary component. That itself would be sufficient, right? So that's the advantage in case of single page applications. So this will result in the websites to be more performant, right? So the performance would be even more in the single page applications, because the loading time is faster, as we need not fetch all the HTML, CSS, and JavaScript files. We just need to fetch the code related to that component, and then we'll be able to display it, right? So that's the advantage of the single page applications. Okay, so the React is very popular because it's mainly used to build these single page applications, right? Since it's mainly used to build single page applications, right now React is very, very popular. Okay, so we understood that based on how we fetch the content. So there are two main web application types, right? One is the multi-page applications, another one is the single page applications. In case of multi-page applications, every URL will have a corresponding set of resources, right? In case of single page application, all the URLs will be associated with a single HTML page, and the corresponding component code will be fetched and will be displayed. Okay, so that's the reason single page applications will be more performant. That is, there will be faster page loading. Okay, clear? So now let's see how to build single page applications in React. Okay, we'll take, so for building these single page applications, we can make use of React Router. So in React, we have React Router. Using this, we can build single page applications. Okay, so for that, to use this, firstly, we need to install. So npm install react-router-dom --save. Okay, so with this, the React Router DOM will be installed, and this will be also added into the package.json file. Okay, let's do this step first. So now, as we understood, we can do routing using the React Router. So for that, firstly, we need to install. So npm install react router dom. So then --save. Okay. So firstly, we are installing this. Later on, we'll understand about this routing and also about how to use this React Router DOM. Okay. Clear? Now, let's take a blog example and understand. So there you can see, right? So as we enter slash some wrong URL, we are getting 404. So in case if we are accessing about and contact, appropriately we are getting the pages, right? And even if we write slash some about or something like that, then we can navigate to the about page, right? And then you can see slash contact, the path is appropriately being updated. And in case of improper path, so we are getting 404. This is the blog example that we want to build. Okay, clear? So now let's start doing this. So for this, already we have some pre-filled code, okay, where the various components are already available for you. There you can see header, which is the top one, okay, and then we have the home, and then about, and then the contact, the components corresponding to each of these, and then finally, in case of improper path provided, so we have to give some not found. So we have the component corresponding to that too. Okay, so these are the various components that are available. And then coming to the app.js file. So in the app.js file, you can see, right? So in the app component, so we have the header, home, about, and contact. Okay, the various components are already available there. So here, if you observe, the header is actually the common component among the home, about, and contact. For all of these, so header is a common part, right? And then based on what we are clicking, so the component below is changing, right? Whether it should be home or about or contact, that's changing. Whereas the common component here is the header. Okay, so since we are returning multiple components from here, we have enclosed them within the fragment. Okay. Clear? So till here, this is the pre-filled code. So with this, you'll be able to see an output in this manner. So there you can see, right, we have home in this manner. Okay, let's give this a try. Okay. So there's a lot of pre-filled code available for you, right? So if you navigate within this, in the source, there's a components directory. There you can see there's about, contact, header, home, not found. All these components are available for you. There you can see. So corresponding index.js, index.css, all these files are available for you. Okay. So, and now in the app.js file, so we are importing all of these components, and then within this you can see we have header, so which is the common component for all the pages, and then there's home, there's about, and there's contact. Since we are returning multiple components from here, we have enclosed within the fragment. This is a short syntax. Okay, clear? So this is what we have right now. Okay, now let me do npm start. Okay, so with this, let's see the output. Okay, so localhost colon 3000. Okay, so there you can see, right, this top part is a header. So, and then we have home. Okay, so if you see that we have home, about, and contact, everything is present here itself because we haven't added the routing. Actually, what do we want? When we click on home, we need the home. When we click on about, we want to display the about. And then when we click on contact, so we all have to display this contact. Okay, right now all these are displayed in one place, right? Whereas we want to appropriately display the components based on the link that we are navigating. Okay. Clear? So we'll achieve this in today's session. So this is nothing but called as routing. That is, so based on the click or based on the path, appropriately displaying the component, right? So this is nothing but the routing. Okay, for this path, so this is the component that needs to be displayed. For this path, this is the component that needs to be displayed. Like this, mapping this thing is nothing but called as routing. Okay, that is navigating between the different URLs from /about to /contact to / like this. Navigating between the different things is nothing but called as routing. Okay, so we'll see how to achieve that in today's session. Okay. So there you can see we have seen this output. Okay, so to implement this routing, so the React router will provide us various components. Okay, there is browser router, there's link, route, and switch like this. There are various components available using which we can implement the routing. Okay. Step by step we'll do this. Okay, so firstly we'll the components that need to be routed has to be wrapped around using the browser router. So we have to wrap the components and that are to be included in the routing using the browser router. Okay, so here in our case we have the home, about, and contact, and header is actually the common component. So we are wrapping all of these components using the browser router. So firstly we are importing it and we are wrapping them using the browser router. Okay, clear? So all the components involved in the routing has to be wrapped using the browser router. Okay, so we are doing that. Okay, let's do this step. So as we understood, right, so we want to achieve routing here, that is based on the path that we are accessing. We want to appropriately display the corresponding component. Okay, so for that we are going to make use of the React router. So firstly, as we understood, there are various components involved. Firstly, we have seen about the browser router. So browser router from, we are importing it from React router DOM. Okay, so this is the browser router that we are importing from React router DOM. So now we have to make use of this and we have to wrap all the components involved in the routing using this browser router. So within the browser router, we have to include all the components that will be involved in the routing. So in the routing, we have home, right? So about, and then contact. So based on the part that we are accessing, appropriately these have to be displayed, right? So they are involved in the routing, and the header is common for all of these. So we include this common component also within this. So we have all of these here. Okay, clear? So I'm going to save this. So we have added this browser router. Okay, now let's proceed further. So the next thing is there's another component called link. Let's understand about this. So using the link component, we can create hyperlinks using which we can navigate through the application. Okay, so previously to create hyperlinks, we have made use of the anchor tag, right? Like we have given a href equal to and we have provided the link. Whereas here, based on the path, right? So we have to navigate between the various paths, right? So to create that hyperlinks, we can make use of this link component. Okay, so using this link component, we'll create hyperlinks using which we can navigate through the application, like from /about to / and then to / contact, like this. You can navigate between the application using this link component. Okay, so for this, you can see there is two, right? There, using that to attribute, we will specify the path. Okay, so like if you click on this particular display text, to which path it has to navigate. Okay, that we will specify using the to. Okay, let's understand this with the help of an example. Okay, so there you can see. Now let's say we have clicked on about. Okay, so which URL should it navigate to? So it has to navigate to, so localhost colon 3000 /about. So the path is /about. So we'll specify that path there in the to. Okay, there you can see in the link we have written to equal to /about. So by clicking on the about, so it has to navigate to the /about path. Okay, and when we are specifying the path here to the to this, we have to specify the absolute path. Okay, always we have to specify the absolute path. So here the absolute path is /about. So that's the reason we have mentioned it here in this manner. Okay, so by clicking on about, it has to go to the /about path, so that will appropriately be mentioned here. Okay, clear? So now let's apply this to the remaining ones too. Okay, so firstly we'll import the link from the React Router DOM. So this has to be done in the header component, right? So in the header itself, we have that home, about, contact, and the hyperlinks should be assigned there. By clicking on home in the header, it has to go to home. By clicking on about, it has to go to the path /about. By clicking on contact, it has to go to the path /contact, right? So all these hyperlinks are present in the header component. So we have to use this link in the header component, right? So now in the header component, so there you can see we are importing the link first from the React Router DOM. So then you can see in the link, so to /, so for the home it is /, just / would be sufficient. Okay, in case of the about, by clicking on about, it has to go to the path /about. So we have written 2 equal to /about for the text about. Okay, similarly for the contact page, we have written 2 equal to /contact to navigate to the path /contact. Okay, clear? So you understood these things, right? Okay, let's do these steps now. Okay, so now we understood about the browser router. The next thing is we understood about the link, right? Using which we'll create the hyperlinks. So where should the hyperlinks occur? So by clicking on home, we want to go to the home. Okay, that is /path. So by clicking on about, we want here the path to be /about, right? This is our requirement. Okay. Similarly, by clicking on contact, we want to navigate to /contact. Okay, in this manner. Okay, like this we want to navigate to various paths based on clicking whichever link we want. Okay, so for that we have to create hyperlinks for each of these, right? So this entire thing is part of the header, right? So now let's go to the header component. So here you can see in the components we have header. So let's navigate to that. So in the index.js, so you can see the list of things. So here we have home, about, and contact, right? Now we want to turn them into hyperlinks. So for that we'll make use of the link component from the React Router DOM. Okay, firstly we have to import, so link from React Router DOM. So with this we have import link. So next now let's add the hyperlinks. So here we have link. Okay, so there's some styling, class name equal to nav-link. Okay, so now here we have to specify the path to which it has to go. The first thing is home, so the path it has to go to is /. Okay, clear? So we have specified that. So now the text that needs to be present is home. Okay, so with this we have added this link. Okay, so for the path 2, right? So if they click on this hyperlink home, so it will navigate to the path /. Okay, so similarly let's add these links to the remaining ones. So for the about also, let's add them. Okay, so here it is about. Okay, and then the path is /about. So once the user to the path /, we when we click on home, it will navigate to the path /. When we click on about, it will navigate to /about, right? When we click on contact, it will navigate to /contact. Okay, so this is what we have mentioned here. Now let's try this out and see. So now let me click on about. Okay, so you can see that. So one second. So right now we are in the about, right? So once we navigate, right there you can see I'm clicking on contact and then it was gone to /contact. Now if I click on about, you can see it has the path here. You have to observe this path. So it is /about, right? If I click on contact, you can see the path has turned into /contact. Now if I click on home, so it will turn into /, right? / or if it doesn't mention also, it means that it's /. So there you can see, right? Appropriately, the URL path is been changing, right? So we have appropriately created the hyperlinks for each of these. Okay, we have created the hyperlinks. We have specified the path, but we haven't connected the path and the component that needs to be displayed, right? So like for /contact, we have to display this contact component, right? So we haven't connected that. Okay, let's do that now. Okay, so far what do we have done? So based on, we have created the hyperlink. So based on the hyperlink, appropriately the path is being updated, right? So there you can see on about it's /about /contact like this. Based on the hyperlink, appropriately the path is changing. The next step is we have to connect this path to the component that needs to be displayed. Okay, so for that we'll use route. Okay, route is a component that this React router provides us. We'll make use of this and we'll connect the path and the component. Okay, route. So firstly we'll specify the path and then we'll specify the component corresponding to it. Okay, so this route component will render the specific UI component when the path matches. Okay, so when the path matches with the current URL, so then that component will be displayed. The component that we have specified will be displayed. Okay, clear? So here we'll use another keyword called exact. So with which the URL will be exactly matched. Okay, the path and the URL will be exactly matched. So for that we'll add this extra keyword. Okay, the path and the URL has to be exactly matched. So we have to add this keyword. Okay, so now in our case, so we have the header, which is a common component for all the paths, right? So we leave that there. Now below that we have home, about, and contact. So these are called as the route components. Okay, so these components will vary based on the path, right? Which component has to be displayed will vary based on the path, right? So these are called the route components. Okay, so now we are going to appropriately use the route component and then appropriately display the component corresponding to the path. Okay, there you can see. So route exact, since we want to exactly match the path and the URL. So then the path is slash and the corresponding component for the slash path is home. There you can see, right? And then for path slash about, it is about, and for path slash contact, it is contact. Okay, with this is appropriately the components will be displayed. Okay, there you can see. When we click on about, we have about. When we click on contact, we have contact in this manner. Okay, so now let's try this out. So firstly, as we understood, right? So using the route, we can appropriately map the path and the corresponding component that needs to be displayed, right? So firstly, we'll import that. So we are importing it. So here you can see header is actually the common component. So that should be displayed for all of them. So we'll leave it like that. So now coming to the home, this should be displayed only when the path is slash. So we have to specify that using the route. So then here, then we'll specify the path that it needs to match. So we have to write path equal to, and it is slash, and the corresponding component is home, right? So I have to specify that. Okay, and this path should be exactly matched with the current URL. So that's the reason we'll write exact. Okay, so let's apply the same thing for the about and also for the contact. Okay, so in this way we are actually routing, right? So when it's slash about, so then the component that needs to be displayed is about. Similarly, when it is slash contact, right? So then we have to display the contact component, right? So in this way, what we are doing, we are mapping the path with the corresponding component that needs to be displayed. So whenever we access slash about, only the about component will be rendered, and then slash contact, then the contact component will be rendered, right? So in this way, so we are able to build single page applications, right? Okay, so now I'll just save this. So here you can see that based on what we are clicking, right, appropriately the path is being updated, right? So and the path is mapped with the corresponding component. So with this, the corresponding component has been displayed, right? So this is what is happening, right? Clear? So we understood about routing here, right? Okay, so using the link, we have appropriately assigned the path. So when we click on a particular thing on the header, so the corresponding path has been connected, and then the path and the component has been connected using the route component. So with this, so we are able to display the right component based on what we click. Okay, clear? So now, here in the route component, so we are using exact, right? Exact keyword. So what happens if we don't specify that? So if you don't specify that exact, so let's see what will happen. Let's just remove them. Okay, then you can see that when you click on home, you will have home, and when you click on about, both home and about will be displayed. Similarly on contact also, home and contact is being displayed, right? So that's what's happening. Okay, so let's have a look at this. So now for the route component, we have written exact, right? Now let's say we haven't specified this exact. Okay, let's see what exactly will happen. Okay, so here you can see that when it's home, okay, so we have the home. Okay, now when we click on about, okay, so you can see we have home and also we have about. Okay, then again if you click on contact, so we have home and also we have contact, right? So what's exactly happening here? Okay, so the issue here is that when the path is slash about, okay, so on the path, let's say that it is slash about. Okay, when we click on about also, the path will turn out to be slash about, right? So then if you try to match with the existing defined URLs, okay, so the paths that we have defined is slash, slash about, and slash contact. Now if you try to map this path and the defined paths, right, so then both slash and slash about both will match, right? Because in slash about we have slash and also there is slash about. So when you're comparing, so both will match. Okay, that's the reason the components related to slash and slash about are being rendered. So slash, the corresponding thing is home, slash about, the corresponding thing is about. So both the components are being rendered. Okay, so if you don't use exact keyword, so then it will try to match all the possible URLs. Okay, so here the possible one is slash and also slash about. So that's the reason we are able to see both the home and about components. Similarly, in case of slash contact also, so it will match slash and also it will match the slash contact. So with this, both home and contact are being displayed. Okay, so that's the reason it's important that you use the exact keyword. Okay, so here you can see, right? So when we are in home, right, so it is slash, so it's fine, we only have home. Now let's say now we have clicked on about, right? So what is the path? Slash about. So in which we have slash, we also have slash about. So slash corresponds to the home component and slash about corresponds to the about component. So both have been matched. That's the reason, so we are able to see both the components. Okay, similarly in case of contact, so the path is slash contact, right? So slash and slash contact both will be mapped. So that's the reason we have home and also we have contact. Okay, so to avoid such scenarios, what do we have to do? We have to use the exact keyword. Okay, so when we use exact, so the exact path will be mapped. So some subset like this, it won't be mapped. Okay, so if you have /about, so the entire thing it will map, and only then the about will be displayed. So now when we click on about, you can see there's only about page. When you click on home, we only have the home page, and when you click on contact, you can see we only have the contact, right? So in this way, only the corresponding components has been displayed, right? The reason is that we are used the exact. Okay, so you understood the importance of this keyword, right? So we are done with this, right? Okay. So now the question is, what happens when the user enters an undefined path? Okay, let's say enters some path which hasn't been defined right now. Okay, so then what should happen? Okay, so let's say there you can see we have written /some AS something something, right? List. So this is not a defined path. So the defined paths that we have is /about and /contact. So /some AS FGH, all this is not defined, right? So then what should happen? Okay, so right now if you enter some undefined path, then no component will be rendered because there's no component corresponding to that, so there won't be anything present there. It's empty right now. Okay, so what will happen exactly? So let's say there's a path in this manner, so it will check in the list of defined paths. So let's say there is no match, then it will result in not found, right? So whenever the user enters a path which does not match with the existing ones, we have to render the not found route. Okay, so if it's present in the listed defined paths, we'll display the component corresponding to it. If it is not present in this, then we have to show a not found component. Okay, so let's see how to do that. So in such scenarios, instead of writing any path, so you just use the route. So you need not specify the path there. So you can directly specify the component. Okay, if you write a route without specifying the path, then it will be considered as a default component. So in case if none of the path matches, so then by default this component will be rendered. Okay, clear? So let's try this out. So we understood about this, right? So as we have seen, so /about /contact. So these are the paths that we have defined. Now let's say the user has entered some path which hasn't been defined in this manner. Okay, so then since there is no component corresponding to this path, you can see this is all empty, right? So now in such scenarios, what we want to do is we want to display a not found component. Okay, so let's see how to do that. So in case of any path which is undefined, we want to display not found component. Okay, so for that you can make use of the route. Okay, so you can write route and you need not specify the path here. Okay, directly you can mention the component equal to, and then you can specify the component here. Okay, so we'll firstly import that component. So already the not found component is available for you. /component/ not found. This is already available. So now let's specify the not found here. Okay. So here if you observe, so for the remaining things we have specified the path, right? In case of the component, the default component, okay, that needs to be rendered in case of any other paths, we need not specify the path here. You have to just specify the component. So if none of these paths match, then this component will be rendered. Okay. So now, so there you can see we got 404, right? So in case of home, in case of about, in case of contact, and in case of the path, so some random path in this manner, so we have the not found. But there's one issue here. Okay, you can see that below the home we also have not found. So below about also we have not found, right? In contact also we have not found. So for all of these we are getting not found, and in case of the undefined path also we are getting not found. Okay, so in case of undefined we want not found, but in case of the other paths, right, where the path matches, we don't want this to be displayed. Let's see how to achieve that. Okay, so we understood this, we have seen this output. We understood that in case of the defined paths also we are getting 404 not found component. So for that, so that not found component, so we want to see how to resolve this problem. Okay, so for that we can make use of the switch component. So using the switch component, so we can appropriately mention all the routes within that switch component. So what the switch component does is, so it will check for the paths one by one. So the path that matches first, so that the component corresponding to that will be rendered. Okay, in case none of the paths match, only then it will render that not found component, the last one. Okay, only if the path doesn't matches, of all the paths doesn't match, only then it will render. Just like the switch case in programming, right? So it will check for the first one, whichever the first match happens, so the corresponding component will be rendered. In case there is no match at all, then the last component you can consider that as a default one, so the component equal to not found, where we haven't specified the path, that one. So that not found will be rendered. Okay, clear? So here you can see we have enclosed all these route components within the switch. So then what will the switch do? It will check for the path. Okay, it will match each of these paths. So the first one that matches, it will get displayed, right, appropriately. So finally, if the path doesn't match with any of these, so then at the end, we have a component where we haven't specified the path. That is a default component. So that will get rendered. So with this, our issue will get resolved. Okay. So let's do this. So our issue right now is this not found component is being displayed for all the paths, right? So it should only be displayed for the unmatched path, right? So for that, we'll make use of the switch. Firstly, we need to import this. So I'll import this from the React router DOM. Switch is a component. So I'll specify that here. So I'm enclosing all the routes into the switch. Okay, so with this, it will check for the path. So the first matching one will be rendered. So in case of no match, so the one here, the default one where the path is not specified, this will get rendered. Okay, so this will solve our problem. Okay, so here you can see in case of about, only the about is being displayed. In case of contact, only contact is being displayed. In case of home, we only have the home. And in case of the undefined path in this manner, so you can see the not found component is being displayed. Okay, clear? So we understood about this, right? Okay, so we have seen this output. So here there are a few points to note that the route component, these, if you try to place a route or the links outside the browser router, so then it will actually throw an error. So they should be present within the browser router. Okay, clear? So we have seen about how to do routing and how to build a single page application, right? So in which we had different components like home, about, and contact. So based on the path, so we are appropriately rendering the component that we want. Okay, so this is what we have achieved, right? Okay, so there's one point, another point to note here is that in your coding practices, we already have provided the browser router in the index.js file. So you need not specify the browser router. You can just make use of the fragment syntax since we are returning multiple ones. Okay, so you can just avoid mentioning this browser router since we have already provided for you in the index.js. So in the index.js, in this manner, we already have provided the browser router. Okay, so in the app.js, you need not use the browser router. You can just use the fragment syntax. Okay, clear? So in the coding practices, this is the case. Okay, as we have already provided the browser router in the index.js file. Okay, where the app component is being rendered. Okay. So in today's session, we understood about the single page applications. We understood about multi-page applications. So then we understood about routing and how we can achieve it using the React router DOM. There are the various components involved there. There's browser router, link, route, and switch. Using this, we were able to build a single page application.